Coming up next, it might sound a little nuts, but man, one of the best parts about listening to music is totally mishearing the lyrics. I mean, sometimes it's just that we don't catch the words right? Other times we straight up change them on purpose for a good laugh. Weird Al's made a career out of that. But the wildest part is that once we've locked in on our version, especially if we've been belting it out that way for years, it's nearly impossible to unhear it or to sing it the right way even after we know what the real lyrics are. Man, we're going to have some fun today, counting down the top 5 songs with a notoriously misheard lyric, including one that was so funny, it was so good, that the normally serious singer who wrote it, he started doing it that way in concert. And then there's the classic where the entire song is a misheard lyric, and it befuddled listeners as well as the FBI. Plus one song that was a cover that outdid the original. The only problem was the singer mangled the main lyric so badly, he turned something tough into a female hygiene product. It's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you were ever completely stoked when your parents took you to McDonald's for breakfast as a kid, back in the 80s, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Nowadays, it would make me probably, hurl, but back then it was kind of fun. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our Music History Daily, straight from the artist. Click the bell. Click the white button, and check out ProfessorRock.com and sign up there. It seems that every day we mishear something, and then we learn that we made a mistake, and it makes us feel a little dumb. But when it comes to mishearing lyrics, it's actually kind of fun. Some artists get really annoyed when fans mess up their lyrics, and then you've got people like Mick Jagger who actually enjoy it. When someone pointed out that his vocals were often hard to understand, Jagger admitted he sometimes mumbled on purpose. Why? Because he liked keeping a little mystery in the music. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably got a whole mental highlight reel of songs you've been singing wrong since you were a little kid. That's where we're going to have some fun with that harmless little faux pas and do a countdown of the top 5 songs with misheard lyrics. Actually, I've had a lot of people requesting this for a few months. All right, away we go at number 5. We're going to get this one out of the way up front. It's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Angus Young didn't pull the title Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap out of thin air. He actually found it in the most unexpected place, a Saturday morning cartoon from back in the day. Actually, in 1962, a quirky animated show called Beanie and Cecil hit the airwaves on ABC. Now, it only ran for one season, 26 episodes, but it had enough charm and rerun power to stick around for years after its cancellation. It played over and over until it got a reboot in '68. Now, one character on the show that stood out for young Angus was Dishonest John, a sneaky mustache-twirling villain. And he was the classic bad guy, always up to no good.
Did someone say double dough? Yeah, I'm all ears.
But this guy had a calling card, and Angus loved it. The calling card read, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Holidays, Sundays, and Special Rates. Now, that little joke from a cartoon was eventually morphed into one of AC/DC's greatest songs, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. It's one of the all-time coolest titles for a song, you have to admit it. But it's also one of the most misheard. Dirty deeds and done dirt cheap. Dirty deeds. When fans first heard the song, their ears betrayed them. Instead of Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, people swore they were hearing all kinds of nonsense, like Dirty Deeds and the Thunder Chiefs, or even worse, Dirty Deeds Done with Sheep. Kind of creepy. Maybe you were one of those folks that confidently belted out Dirty Deeds, Dunder Chiefs at the top of your lungs. Don't worry, you're not alone. Aside from the chorus that many fans famously misheard over the years, AC/DC's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap stirred up a different kind of trouble. One that came down to a seemingly innocent line slipped in by Bon Scott. With his signature wink and a grin delivery, Bon belts out, "Just ring 362-436," a line he later admitted was meant to sound like a women's measurements. Here's the kicker, though. That exact number actually belonged to somebody. Not in Australia, as you might expect, but in the quiet town of Libertyville, Illinois. Just ring 362-436. As the song picked up steam, so did the phone calls, dozens of them, many of the late-night, inappropriate variety. A local couple, fed up with the endless prank calls, decided to take the band to court, claiming the lyric had turned their lives upside down. But alas, when the case landed in front of a judge, it didn't take long for the gavel to come down. The court found the lawsuit as absurd as the band did, and AC/DC walked away unscathed. Still rocking, still unapologetic, and with another wild story to add to their legendary reputation. AC/DC started recording Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap in early 1976. They released it in Australia on September 20th of that year. But when they sent it to Atlantic Records, the label wasn't impressed with Bond's lead vocal. The background vocals were actually just heavy breathing. They didn't like that, and they decided to pass on it. But then 5 years later, it did get a release after the massive success of Back in Black. In its original run in 76, Dirty Deeds peaked at number 29 down under, and then number 34 in New Zealand. When it finally got its due in America, it quickly became an album rock staple, going to number 4 on the Billboard Rock Chart in 1981. Next up on our countdown of the top 5 songs with a misheard lyric, it's one that was so funny that the singer actually started repeating it live. Talking about Bad Moon Rising by CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Now, John Fogerty once revealed that the haunting lyrics that he wrote for Bad Moon Rising were actually sparked by an old film called The Devil and Daniel Webster that came out clear back in 1941. In the movie, a hurricane tears through a town, leaving destruction in its wake. That powerful imagery, it stuck with him and became the genesis for one of the song's most chilling lines. I feel the hurricane blowing. I hope you're quite prepared to die. There's a pivotal moment in The Devil and Daniel Webster where a violent hurricane rips through farmland, wiping out nearly everything in its path, except the crops belonging to Jabez Stone, a man who struck a deal with the devil for wealth and prosperity. That eerie twist stuck with John, and it became the heart of the dark undercurrent of Bad Moon Rising, one of the great songs of the time that it came out in the late 60s. John later explained that the song wasn't just about storms, though. It was a warning of something far more ominous. He said it's about the apocalypse that was going to be visited upon us. But there was something curious about the song, something that John didn't notice at first. Actually, it wasn't until CCR started rehearsing the song that it hit him. The melody, it was upbeat. It was almost cheerful, while the lyrics were just pure destruction. He said, I realized the dichotomy. Songs about hurricanes and raging ruin, yet it's a happy sound and tune. That contrast, sunny on the surface, stormy underneath, it's part of what makes Bad Moon Rising such a compelling track. When fans first heard the chorus of Bad Moon Rising, some of them must have thought that John Fogerty was deeply concerned about their bladder control. The actual lyric, don't go round tonight, it's bound to take your life, there's a bad moon on the rise. That was meant to be ominous, a warning of impending doom, a cosmic heads up that trouble was definitely a brewing. What a surprising number of people heard instead was, there's a bathroom on the right, not a bad moon on the rise. Suddenly, the song wasn't about an apocalyptic omen. It was about finding the nearest restroom in a hurry. Imagine it. Chaos is about to erupt. The world's teetering on the edge. And Fogerty's top priority, making sure you know where the facilities are. Maybe he's just being thoughtful. After all, the end is nigh. You definitely don't want to be caught looking for a toilet. The misheard lyrics from Bad Moon Rising became so widespread that John Fogerty couldn't escape it, no matter how hard he tried. But rather than getting frustrated with it, he noticed the humor in it. Fogerty admitted that it didn't really bother him at all when fans sang the wrong lyric. It was so good, Fogerty himself started doing it. He started joking, there's a bathroom on the right. It became a playful moment in concert, sharing a laugh with his live audience. Man, I think that's so great. Bad Moon Rising hit number 1 in Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, and the UK. Climbed to number 3 in Australia. And of course, you can guess where it hit here, number 2, which was kind of the curse of CCR. Well, I hope we all feel refreshed after that short bathroom break. Let's get back to the top 5. The misheard lyrics. Coming in at number 3, I've got Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by the Beatles. Now, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is famous for a lot of reasons. Not just for its often misheard lyrics, but also for having one of the most misunderstood meanings. When Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was released, many people immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was about substances, right? After all, the initials LSD stood out clearly in the title, and John Lennon, the song's writer, was known to experiment with, that type of stuff. Again, I can't say some of the stuff on YouTube anymore. But in a 1971 interview, John swore that there was no connection between the song and said substances. He explained that he hadn't even noticed the coincidence. He said, I didn't even see it on the label. I didn't look at the initials. He said, I don't look. I never play things backwards. I listened to it as I made it. It's like there will be things on this one, if you fiddle about with it, I don't even know what they are. Every time after that, though, I would look at the titles to see what it said, and usually they never said anything. To John, it was just a little title that had come from a memory that had nothing to do with substances. Green trees and marmalade skies. The story behind Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is one of the most famous from Beatle lore. Of course, it starts with a young girl named Lucy O'Donnell, who would later become Lucy Vodden. She was a classmate of John Lennon's son Julian at the private health house school in Weybridge, Surrey. So one day, Julian came home with a drawing that he'd made of his friend Lucy. He'd sketched stars in the sky, and he titled the picture Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. That's where the title came from. In a 1975 interview, Lennon shared this memory, explaining how his son had come up with the idea. It was a simple, innocent moment that John thought was so beautiful, so he memorialized it in a song. Actually, the true identity of the Lucy behind the song wouldn't be fully revealed until years later. In 2009, when Lucy O'Donnell, who had become Lucy Vodden, passed away from complications of lupus. But before her passing, Julian Lennon reconnected with her after she made an appearance on a BBC broadcast. During the interview, Lucy fondly recalled a childhood memory, bringing her back to a simpler time. She said, I remember Julian and I both doing pictures on a double-sided easel, throwing paint at each other, much to the horror of the classroom attendant. Of course, she said that with a laugh. So Julian had painted a picture, and on that day, his father showed up with a chauffeur to pick his son up from school. The culprit for the misheard lyric in Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, almost forgot, and we're talking about the other part of the story, that came from Lennon's first verse. The correct lyric is, a girl with kaleidoscope eyes. But many, they heard the line as the girl with colitis goes by. A girl with kaleidoscope eyes. It's another misheard lyric related to the bowel region, right? Colitis, of course, being inflammation of the large intestine that, let's just say, can lead to a lot of pain. I've had stomach problems all my life, I understand. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, John Lennon's colorful, magical surrealism, was not released as a single, though. In spite of the fact that John didn't like the final arrangement and was not happy with his vocal, he was always really proud of the lyrics, inspired by little Julian and the little picture. It's one of the most celebrated cuts from the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I'm sure most of you remember Elton John's spirited reimagining of Lucy in '74 that was put out as a single, and it went to number 1 in Canada and the Billboard Hot 100. Continue our countdown of the misheard lyrics, the top 5. We land on a track, the number 2 spot follows the tale of a lovesick sailor aching to get back to his girl. This song's built around a straightforward verse-chorus groove. Oh man, but the way this song exploded into full-blown pop culture phenomenon, it's incredible. At number 2, I've got the famously indecipherable Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. And the fascinating ride of Louie Louie, from total obscurity to scandal, massive success, and lasting fame, is as unbelievable as it is unforgettable. I mean, its impact on music history is pretty mind-blowing. The song was composed by Richard Berry in 1955 and was made famous in 1963 by an unknown band from Portland, Oregon that called themselves the Kingsmen. Now, Richard Berry's words, the lyrics to Louie Louie, practically fell out of the sky, landing effortlessly over that mesmerizing bass line as he jotted them down backstage on a strip of toilet paper, no less. It only cost $50 to make. We'll talk about that in a sec. But before it ever became a rock and roll anthem, Louie Louie had its roots in a different rhythm entirely. The melody actually traces back to El Loco Cha-Cha, a catchy Afro-Cuban tune that was made popular by bandleader Rene Tizet. That infectious groove made its way into American pop music, blending cultures in a way that would eventually shake up in the charts. In April of '63, a scrappy garage band from Portland called the Kingsmen walked into a downtown studio with a very simple plan. They were looking to land a summer gig playing on a cruise ship, and they needed an audition tape to make that happen. So they picked a song that they'd been jamming on. It's called Louie Louie. It was their second ever recording, and the session took place at Northwestern Inc. Northwestern Inc. Motion Pictures and Recording Studios located in downtown Portland. They only had 1 hour booked, and like I said, the whole thing cost them just under $50, a fee that they all chipped in to cover. It was so random because they had no idea that this low-budget one-take wonder would go on to make rock history and also spawn an FBI investigation for what many thought was the most obscene song ever recorded. There sure was a lot of mumbling in the Kingsmen's version of Louie Louie, which led to many classic lyrics and the criminal investigation, right? Not long after the Kingsmen's rough and rowdy take on Louie Louie hit the airwaves in the Pacific Northwest, the rumors started flying. People swore they heard something filthy buried in the garbled lyrics. Words so scandalous, they said, it had to be stopped. Parents were outraged. Politicians took notice. Before long, the FBI got involved. Despite the Kingsmen's repeated denials of any foul play, the controversy around Louie Louie refused to die down. Whispers of obscenity, they turned into national uproar, and before long, the FBI stepped in and launched a full-blown investigation that stretched on for 31 months. After poring over the track, playing it forwards and backwards and every which way, their final report came back with a shrug. They couldn't make out a single word clearly enough to call it obscene. In the end, they found nothing but a lovesick sailor mumbling his way through a harmless little tune. In fact, the entire song is pretty much one long misheard lyric, except for the Louie Louie part. Still, the damage, or maybe the magic, was done. Radio stations across the country banned Louie Louie, convinced that it was corrupting young minds, but that only made kids want to listen to it more. The controversy turned the song into a national obsession, and what started out as a cheap 1 hour demo exploded into one of the most legendary hits in rock history. All right, so years after they were cleared by the FBI and the case against them was thrown out by the court, there is this. Kingsman drummer Lynn Easton finally came clean. At exactly 56 seconds into the song, after botching a drum fill, he actually blurted out the F word in frustration. Completely unintentional, but it did make the recording. Honestly, nobody would have ever known that it was there if it wasn't pointed out. Even if you turn the volume up as loud as the speaker will go, you can barely catch it. The amazing story of Louie Louie and its mystifying lyrical controversy was culminated with a big old smash. Of course, it went to number 2 in Canada and went all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 back in '63. And believe me, it was tough to leave that out of the number 1 spot, but my number 1 pick on our countdown of the top 5 songs of misheard lyrics, I gotta go with the song that pretty much invented the term misheard lyric. It's the Jimi Hendrix Experience with their iconic classic, Purple Haze. Jimi Hendrix once shared that the idea for Purple Haze came from a dream, one that haunted him. He found himself walking beneath the sea as if gravity had no say in the matter. Everything was quiet. It was otherworldly. But then came the haze, a thick swirling purple mist wrapped around him like a shroud. It was very disorienting, even terrifying. He couldn't tell which way was up, where he was going, how to escape. In this dream, it just went like it seemed to go on forever. And Jimmy said something pulled him back. It was his faith. He believed it was Jesus who saved him from drowning in that purple abyss. In fact, Jimmy was going to call the song Purple Haze, Jesus Saves, but then he changed his mind. Jimi Hendrix didn't just draw inspiration from dreams. He also had a deep love for science fiction and the unexplained. One of the key influences behind Purple Haze came from a novel he devoured in the mid-60s, Night of Light by Philip Jose Farmer. The book, which expanded on an earlier short story, was set on a distant alien world where strange sunspots filled the sky with a purplish haze, throwing the planet's inhabitants into chaos and confusion. The imagery from the novel was very similar to Jim's bizarre purple dream. Purple Haze has been twisted and turned into whatever listeners wanted it to be. And there was a curious line at the end of the first verse that threw fans for a loop. One of the coolest lines in a song ever. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. But what many heard was, excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy was reportedly part of a marathon Hendrix composition that had over 1,000 words before they trimmed it down for coveted radio play. The misheard lyric became so prevalent, it didn't take much time to get back to Jimmy. But like Fogerty, with the funny misheard lyric, "There's a bathroom on the right" from Bad Moon Rising, Hendrix embraced it. He incorporated it into his live set. During his concerts with The Experience, instead of singing the lyric he wrote, Jimmy would give it to fans and belt out, "Excuse me while I kiss this guy," and then he'd point to his drummer, Mitch Mitchell.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Now, whenever Jimi Hendrix pointed at Mitch Mitchell on stage, it wasn't just a casual gesture. It was his way of giving credit where it was due. Mitch wasn't just keeping time behind the kit. He was part of the sonic storm that defined the Hendrix sound. Mitch's drumming was a wild, unpredictable force, perfect for Hendrix. Some called it flying. Others said he played like a madman, but everyone agreed he was something really special. Ironically, he only landed the gig with the Jimi Hendrix Experience because of a simple coin toss. He went head-to-head with another powerhouse drummer, Ainsley Dunbar, and luck tipped the scales in Mitch's favor. He became one of the most revered drummers ever. One of the most underappreciated for sure. Arguably one of the greatest rock tracks ever recorded, Purple Haze, and its most famous misheard lyric, was released as a single in the UK in 1967. Shooting to number 3 was later the first cut on the North American release of Are You Experienced, the debut record by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, one of the greatest of all time. On the Billboard Hot 100, the single, it actually stalled at number 65, but it's gotten big, much bigger since then. I mean, can you imagine it only went to number 65? But you know what? It doesn't matter if Hendrix was kissing the sky or kissing this guy. Purple Haze has become one of the greats of all time.
Excuse me while I kiss the sky.
So that's it for the countdown of the top 5 songs with misheard lyrics. I'm sure we could do 5 more. What are your favorite misheard lyrics? I do have to do a couple of honorable mentions. Don't Bring Me Down by ELO Electric Light Orchestra. Virtually everybody thought Jeff Lynne was singing Bruce. He was actually saying Gruß, a German word he didn't even know existed. It just sounded good.
Don't bring me down, Bruce.
And of course, I have to say Blinded by the Light by Manfred Mann's Earth Band in 1976. Everybody thought Chris Thompson was saying wrapped up like a douche instead of the proper Bruce Springsteen lyric revved up like a deuce, as in the Deuce Coupe, a vintage hot rod made by Ford.
Oh, cut loose like a deuce, another runner in the night.
One of the great misheard lyrics of all time. When Springsteen sang it and wrote it, it was supposed to sound tough. Instead, it was a female hygiene product. Oh man, classic.
Wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night.
What other lyrics should we cover? Misheard lyrics? Should we do another top 5? Share your memories below and your misheard lyrics, and let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, records in the truth, my friends.